So this episode is the final part of a 3-episode arc. Meisei faces off against Mita's team at Toshu. Tomo's already pitched a few scoreless innings and he's been asked to continue the game and hopefully finish it. As a response to Tomo's excellent pitching, Mita has also decided that he's going to finish off the game as well. But when Mita tries to finish off the game, he's trying to complete a perfect game. He's doing this for 2 reasons. One, because he wants to make sure to control the narrative around this game and not let Toma take the headlines. And secondly, he wants to impress his little sister and show just how good of a pitcher he is. When you see Mita and his coach having a discussion on the bench, the coach reveals something pretty enlightening. He's one of the first adults to watch both Toma and Souichirou play and conclude that Souichirou is actually the more talented of the two. Or at least that's what he insinuates when he says that Toma isn't necessarily any better than any of the pitchers that their team faced at Summer Koshien. Souichirou definitely has a bit more craftiness in him than Toma does, and he demonstrates this in the bottom of the final inning. Mita is about to close up his perfect game, and very conveniently, Souichirou and Toma are batting 8th and 9th, the very final batters that he would be facing. Souichirou thinks that he is able to get his bat on the ball, but he swings through strike 3. And with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, he passes Toma on the way to the dugout, and Toma notices that Souichirou is smiling at him. Toma finds this weird because Souichirou doesn't smile hardly at all on the field, especially after striking out. And I choose to interpret it this way. That breaking up Mita's perfect game is of secondary importance to Souichirou, because Souichirou understands that if he breaks up the perfect game, Meisei's still down 5 runs and that hit kind of isn't for any purpose. Whereas if he allows Toma to break up the perfect game as the very final batter of the game, that allows Toma to steal the headlines because he would have pitched 7 scoreless innings against a Koshien quarterfinal team, and he would have been responsible for the only offensive output against presumably one of the best pitchers in the country. Souichirou doesn't say any of this, maybe because my theory is wrong, but if it is correct, it's because this show does a very good job of hiding subtext in places that you don't expect to find. But of course, Toma goes up and strikes out, preserving Mita's perfect game and giving him the spotlight that he rightfully deserves. And as the game ends, we reach the real theme of these past 3 episodes, which has been the relationships between a brother and a sister. Mita goes back to greet his sister, but she's already gone off by the 8th inning to watch a different game, presumably chasing a boy she likes. Whereas Otomi chastises Toma for not caring enough about her when they reach home. But of course, when they set off to walk Punch, the adorable dog, Otomi gets distracted by the middle school boy Akari, who has sprained his leg in the soccer game and is trying to stumble the way home. She takes it upon herself to put him on the back of the bicycle and push him to the hospital to make sure that his ankle gets checked out. Another example of potential romantic tension between brother and sister, despite not being related by blood, which has been teased a little bit but hasn't really been fleshed out at all in the story so far. Story-wise, that's about it. This was a pretty slow conclusion to the 3-episode arc, but it was still very satisfying and very enjoyable. One last note I'd like to make about this episode is that about a week ago I discovered that this show was added on Crunchyroll, probably weeks before. Up until that point I was watching this show on Funimation, because I initially believed that Funimation had exclusive rights to this show. It turns out they only had exclusive rights to the simulcast dub, and both streaming services would subtitle it. So I watched it on Crunchyroll this week because it consolidates all of the stuff I'm watching anyway. I watch very few things on Funimation, and most of my anime watching goes on Crunchyroll. But I discovered that the audio mix on this episode was a bit strange. All of the sound effects and scores were much louder than the dialogue itself, which was a little bit irritating, but wasn't a deal breaker for me at least. I decided to watch the first minute or so of the episode on Funimation and did not hear the same issues. So if you thought there was a weird audio mix this week, perhaps check it out on Funimation. It's a paid-only website. It's not like Crunchyroll where you can watch a freemium service and sit through commercials. But if audio quality is something that you really care about, then Funimation is probably the service that you'll want to use specifically for this show. And I will leave it at that. See you next week.